The silent arrival. The massive viewing screens throughout Nexus Prime flickered to life as the annual Galactic Combat Championships began their opening ceremonies. Across 17 different sectors, beings of all species gathered around displays to witness what many considered the greatest spectacle in known space. The championship had run for over 3 centuries, establishing a clear hierarchy among the galaxy's warrior cultures. Elena Vasquez stepped off the transport shuttle onto the gleaming deck of Nexus Prime, her worn leather boots making barely a whisper against the polished metal floor. Around her, alien dignitaries and their elaborate entourages created a symphony of colors, sounds, and scents that would have overwhelmed most beings. The human engineer from Kepler 442b simply adjusted the strap of her small duffel bag and walked toward the registration desk. The station's artificial gravity felt almost weightless to Elena after spending 24 years on a world where gravity pulled at twice Earth normal. Her homeworld had been one of humanity's first successful terraforming projects, though successful was a relative term. The colonists had adapted to crushing gravity, toxic atmospheric elements, and wildlife that could shred titanium plating. What didn't kill humans seemed to make them stronger, and Kepler 442b had certainly tested that theory. At the championship registration terminal, a tall, blue-skinned Altarian clerk looked up from his datapad with barely concealed annoyance. His species was known for their efficiency and their disdain for what they considered lesser beings interrupting their workflow. Purpose of visit to Nexus Prime? The clerk asked in heavily accented Standard Galactic, his forearms continuing to process documents for more important visitors. Combat Championship registration, Elena replied quietly, sliding her identification across the counter. The clerk's movement stopped entirely. All 4 of his eyes focused on the small human woman standing before him. He picked up her identification with one delicate finger, as if touching something contaminated. Human, from Kepler 442b, requesting combat registration, he muttered, consulting his terminal. There must be some mistake. Humans don't participate in the combat championships. Your species lacks the necessary physical requirements. Elena waited patiently as the clerk ran through several database searches, his blue skin gradually shifting to a darker shade that indicated confusion among his people. Finally, he looked up with what might have been pity. The registration fee is 50,000 galactic credits. Most species require months of preparation and specialized equipment. The current champion has not been defeated in 47 consecutive matches. Perhaps you would prefer to register as a spectator. 50,000 credits for combat registration, Elena confirmed, placing a credit chip on the counter. I understand the terms. The clerk stared at the chip, then at Elena, then back at the chip. In the background, the station's announcement system crackled to life. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications, please direct your attention to the main viewing screens for the introduction of this year's defending champion, Korath, the destroyer of the Zephyrian Empire. The screens around the registration area lit up with the image of a creature that defied easy description. Korath stood nearly 4 meters tall, his reptilian hide covered in natural armor plating that had deflected particle beam weapons in previous battles. 6 arms ending in razor-sharp claws protruded from his torso, while his massive tail could crush the spine of most galactic species with a casual sweep. His head resembled a cross between a crocodile and a battle tank, with bony ridges protecting eyes that glowed with predatory intelligence. The crowd throughout the station erupted in a mixture of cheers and fearful acknowledgement. Korath had not simply won his previous 47 matches. He had dominated them so completely that several opposing species had withdrawn from future competitions rather than face the possibility of extinction. The destroyer's most recent victory came against champion Thex Prime of the Brutarian clans, the announcer continued. The match lasted 14 seconds. Elena watched the replay footage with professional interest. Korath moved with surprising speed for his size. His attacks coordinated between all 6 arms in patterns that would overwhelm most defensive strategies. More importantly, she noticed that he favored his right side slightly, compensating for what appeared to be an old injury to his left rear arm. Ma'am, the clerk said tentatively, are you certain about this registration? The Zephyrian Empire has issued formal challenges to 17 different warrior cultures. None have been able to produce a champion capable of lasting more than 2 minutes against Korath. Your species, forgive my directness, one is not known for physical combat prowess. Helena turned back to the clerk with a slight smile. My species is known for surviving things that should have killed us. We're also known for learning from our mistakes. Process the registration, please. The clerk's hands trembled slightly as he completed the necessary forms. Within minutes, Elena's image appeared on screens throughout the station alongside her basic information. The reaction was immediate and varied. In the Zephyrian viewing section, delegates burst into laughter. That sounded like grinding metal. Korath himself was shown the registration on his private screen and dismissed it with a casual wave of one massive claw. Other species reacted with confusion, concern, or curiosity. The Altarians began calculating odds and adjusting their betting pools. The peaceful Melodians expressed worry about unnecessary violence. The warrior cultures of the Outer Rim showed interest in seeing how the strange little human would meet her end. But in the small human diplomatic section, Ambassador Chen Wei sat forward with sudden attention. He had served on the Kepler 442b Colony Council before accepting his current position, and he knew exactly what kind of people that world produced. He immediately activated his priority communication system. This is Ambassador Chen to all human colonies and Earth Central Command. We have a situation at Nexus Prime that requires immediate attention. One of our citizens has registered for the combat championships against the current defending champion. I repeat, we have a human challenger in the arena. The response from Earth came within minutes, encoded with the highest priority classifications. Ambassador Chen, confirm identity of challenger and provide full background assessment. This could represent either a significant diplomatic opportunity or an unmitigated disaster for human-alien relations. Elena remained unaware of the political storm beginning to swirl around her registration. She had secured modest quarters in the station's lower levels and was reviewing technical specifications of previous championship matches. Her engineering background served her well as she analyzed the combat arena's dimensions, environmental controls, and the various advantages they might provide. The arena itself was a marvel of galactic engineering. A transparent dome 50 meters in diameter contained an adjustable atmosphere that could accommodate the environmental needs of different species. The floor could shift between various terrains, from smooth metal to rough stone to simulated planetary surfaces. Most importantly for Elena's purposes, the artificial gravity could be adjusted anywhere from 0G to 3 times galactic standard. She smiled as she read that particular specification. 3 times galactic standard was still lighter than the gravity she had grown up with. As Elena studied technical manuals and combat footage, news of her registration spread throughout the galaxy at faster than light speeds. On dozens of worlds, beings gathered around communication arrays to discuss this unprecedented development. Humans had been part of the galactic community for less than 2 centuries, and while they had proven to be excellent traders, engineers, and diplomats, they had never been considered warriors. The Zephyrian Empire's response was swift and dismissive. War leader Vorth issued a statement through official channels. If the humans wish to sacrifice one of their kind to demonstrate the superiority of Zephyrian strength, we will accommodate this request. The match will serve as an educational experience for all species who question the natural order of galactic power. But other voices began to emerge from unexpected corners of the galaxy. Dr. Kest 7 of the Centauri Research Institute had spent decades studying human adaptability and evolution. His analysis, transmitted to academic networks throughout known space, painted a different picture. Humans represent a unique evolutionary path, his report stated. Unlike most galactic species that evolved on stable, hospitable worlds, humans developed on a planet with variable climate, competing predators, and constant environmental challenges. Their adaptability quotient exceeds any known species by a factor of 3 to 1. While they may appear physically inferior, this appearance may be deceiving. Elena's final preparation was simple compared to the elaborate rituals performed by most championship challengers. She spent an hour in the station's modest, human-compatible gymnasium, running through basic exercises that helped her adjust to the lighter gravity. She ate a simple meal of earth-grown foods that her metabolism could process efficiently. Then she slept for exactly 8 hours, setting her internal clock for optimal performance. The next morning, as she walked toward the arena entrance, Elena passed viewing screens showing the mounting excitement throughout the galaxy. Betting pools had reached record numbers, with odds heavily favored against her survival past the first 30 seconds. News crews from every major galactic network had arrived at Nexus Prime, and the station's population had swelled to over 2 million beings. Elena ignored the fanfare and focused on her breathing. Her father had taught her that fear was just another environmental factor to adapt to, like gravity or atmospheric pressure. You acknowledged it, learned from it, and then you moved forward anyway. As she reached the arena entrance, a young Altarian reporter managed to break through the security perimeter. "Miss Vasquez, can you comment on your chances against Korath the Destroyer? What message do you want to send to the human colonies?" Elena paused and looked directly into the camera, her brown eyes steady and calm. "I'm not here to send a message," she said quietly. "I'm here to win." The breaking point. The arena floor thrummed with energy as Elena stepped through the entrance portal. Above her, 2 million beings filled the crystalline amphitheater that spiraled upward until the uppermost tiers disappeared into artificial clouds. The noise was deafening. A cacophony of alien languages, electronic translations, and the low hum of recording equipment from every major galactic news network. Elena walked to her designated starting position, her simple gray jumpsuit and standard issue, boots looking almost comically inadequate compared to the elaborate ceremonial preparations happening on the opposite side of the arena. Korath the Destroyer was receiving final blessings from Zephyrian war priests, their chanted invocations echoing through personal amplification systems that made their voices sound like grinding starship engines. The arena's environmental systems hummed to life, adjusting the atmosphere to accommodate both human and Zephyrian physiology. The gravity settled at 1.8 times galactic standard, a compromise that favored Korath's heavier bone structure while still allowing Elena to function. She smiled slightly at the sensation. It felt like coming home. High above in the diplomatic viewing section, Ambassador Chen Wei gripped the railing of his booth. Beside him, Commander Sarah Okafor of the Human Defense Fleet watched through tactical analysis equipment that had been hastily installed for the occasion. "Her bio readings are remarkably stable," Commander Okafor observed. "Heart rate, brain activity, muscle tension. She's calmer than I was during my last medical examination." "She's from Kepler 442b, Ambassador Chen replied. "That world produces a different kind of human." In the Zephyrian Imperial booth, War Leader Vorth leaned forward with anticipation. His advisors had assured him that this match would demonstrate Zephyrian superiority so decisively that several minor species would likely pledge immediate allegiance to the Empire. The political implications were enormous. "How long do you estimate the human will survive?" asked Sub-Commander Grath, his scaled hand adjusting the recording equipment that would broadcast this victory throughout Zephyrian space. "Korath's opening strike should end it immediately," Vorth replied confidently. "The human appears to have no protective equipment, no weapons, no enhancements. This will be educational for the lesser species." The arena's referee, a neutral, Valdorian whose species had overseen galactic combat sports for centuries, floated to the center of the arena on his anti-gravity platform. His mechanical voice resonated through the amphitheater. "Combat will commence when the resonance chime sounds. Victory conditions are unconsciousness, death, or verbal surrender. Environmental protections are active. Medical teams are standing by champions. Acknowledge your readiness." Korath raised all 6 arms and roared, a sound that rattled the arena's reinforced walls and caused several smaller species in the audience to instinctively cover their auditory organs. The display of raw power was magnificent and terrifying. Elena simply nodded once. The chime resonated through the arena with a pure, crystalline note that seemed to freeze time for an instant. Then Korath launched himself forward with explosive speed, his massive form covering ground with surprising agility. His primary striking arms swept in converging arcs designed to catch his opponent regardless of which direction she dodged. Elena didn't dodge. Instead, she stepped forward and dropped into a crouch that brought her below Korath's striking pattern. His claws passed over her by mere centimeters as she rolled between his massive legs and came up behind him. The crowd's collective gasp was audible even over the ambient noise. Korath spun with remarkable speed for a creature his size, his tail whipping around in a strike that could have shattered reinforced concrete. Elena was already moving, staying inside his reach where his larger limbs couldn't generate full power. She struck twice with her fists, targeting nerve clusters that she had identified from studying anatomical databases of Zephyrian physiology. Fireball strikes would have been lethal to most species, but Korath's natural armor plating absorbed the impact. However, Elena wasn't trying to cause immediate damage. She was testing his defenses, mapping his reaction times and confirming the weaknesses she had theorized from watching his previous matches. "She's studying him," Commander Okafor breathed, her tactical analysis equipment showing Elena's movement patterns. "Look at her positioning. She's not fighting yet. She's conducting reconnaissance." Korath's frustration became evident as his attacks grew more aggressive. His 6 arms worked in coordinated patterns that had overwhelmed every previous opponent, but the small human seemed to anticipate each strike. She moved with economical precision, never wasting energy on unnecessary movements, always staying just out of reach of his most dangerous attacks. The audience began to murmur in confusion. This wasn't how championship matches typically proceeded. Most challengers either attacked aggressively in the opening moments or were destroyed by Korath's initial assault. Elena was doing neither. She was simply surviving, and in doing so, she was accomplishing something no previous challenger had managed. "Why doesn't she attack?" War Leader Vorth demanded, his confidence beginning to show cracks. "What is her strategy?" Elena answered that question in the 8th minute of the match. Korath had committed to a devastating overhead strike with his primary arms, leaving his left side momentarily exposed. Elena moved with sudden explosive speed, her fist driving into the exact point where she had identified old scar tissue from a previous injury. The impact sent shockwaves through Korath's nervous system. For the first time in 47 matches, the defending champion staggered. Elena followed up immediately, striking 3 more nerve clusters in precise sequence. Each blow was calculated to disrupt his motor control without causing permanent damage. Korath roared in pain and surprise, sweeping his massive arms in wild arcs that demonstrated his growing desperation. Elena stayed inside his reach, methodically working on his weak points like an engineer dismantling a complex machine. She struck joints, pressure points, and nerve clusters with surgical precision. "She's not trying to overpower him, Ambassador," Chen realized. "She's systematically shutting down his motor functions." The match reached its turning point when Korath attempted his signature finishing move, a forward leap that brought all 6 arms together in a concentrated strike capable of crushing an armored vehicle. Elena had been waiting for this moment. As he launched himself forward, she stepped aside and caught his leading arm with both hands. Using Korath's own momentum and the principles of leverage that worked the same way throughout the galaxy, Elena threw her entire body weight into a hip toss that redirected his massive form toward the arena floor. The impact when he landed sent tremors through the entire structure. The audience erupted in chaos. Beings who had never seen Korath even touched were witnessing him being thrown by a creature 1/10 his size. In the Zephyrian booth, War Leader Vorth stood frozen in disbelief. Elena didn't give Korath time to recover. As he struggled to regain his footing, she applied a submission hold that targeted the major nerve bundle at the base of his skull. Her engineering knowledge of leverage and force distribution allowed her to apply precisely the right amount of pressure to disrupt his nervous system without causing permanent damage. "Yield," she said quietly, her voice somehow carrying through the arena's acoustic design. Korath's response was to attempt a backward headbutt with his armored skull. Elena had anticipated this reaction. She adjusted her grip and applied additional pressure to a secondary nerve cluster. The champion's massive form went limp as his voluntary motor control shut down. Elena held the position for another 30 seconds, ensuring that Korath understood his situation completely. Then she released the hold and stepped back, raising her hands to show that the match was over. The arena fell into absolute silence. 2 million beings sat in stunned disbelief as the defending champion lay motionless on the arena floor. Elena walked to the center of the combat area and looked up at the referee's platform. "Medical assistance for neural shock," she called out professionally. "No permanent damage, but he'll need about 20 minutes to regain full motor control." As medical teams rushed onto the arena floor, Elena walked toward the exit. The silence finally broke as scattered applause began from the human diplomatic section, then spread through the amphitheater like wildfire. By the time she reached the exit portal, the noise was overwhelming. In the aftermath, as news of the match spread throughout the galaxy, the political ramifications became clear. The Zephyrian Empire's aura of invincibility had been shattered by a single human engineer. Other species began reassessing their relationships with humanity, recognizing that Earth's children might be more formidable than anyone had realized. Elena gave only one interview before departing Nexus Prime. When asked about her victory, she looked directly into the camera with the same calm expression she had worn throughout the match. "Humans don't win by being the strongest or the fastest," she said. "We win by being stubborn enough to keep learning until we figure out a solution. We win by refusing to give up, and we win by working together as one species, no matter how far apart our worlds might be." As her transport shuttle departed Nexus Prime, Elena settled into her seat and closed her eyes. She had engineering work waiting for her back on Kepler 442b, and she had never been one to waste time on unnecessary fanfare. Behind her, the galaxy would never be quite the same.